move on with the freedom fight. Move on, move on. We're fighting for equal rights. Move on, move on. Move on with the freedom fight. Move on, move on. We're fighting for equal rights.
I went to Spelman College, a Negro Girls' College in Atlanta, Georgia, on an exchange program from my own college the spring of my junior year. When I went down, I made myself promise that I would not stay in the South and work on civil rights, but that I would come back north, because I felt, as a Northerner, my place was in the North. However, when I was there, I became very good friends with a Negro girl who was from Alabama, and I discovered that I could not visit her home in Montgomery during spring vacation, as would be normal for friends going to a college where one's very far from home. And I discovered, because of discrimination and because of segregation, that our friendship was very much hampered, both in the white and the Negro communities. And I felt that only by getting very involved in the struggle at its ugliest and its most blatant problems of segregation and discrimination, could I help to bring about a country in a world where we could become friends. I was one of about 650 students who went to Mississippi to work in various projects for the Council of Federated Organizations. The program was actually boiled down to two specific parts: freedom schools and voter registration. I worked in the freedom school half. I taught Negro history, a course in nonviolence, and a course in religion. My girls were very, very interested people. I was very afraid at first of how to keep order, how to keep interest, and all the various problems that teachers have, but found instead that my biggest problem was how to keep up with their interest. They had never known a white person as a friend before. They did not think at first that they could ever become friends with a white person. But by the end of the summer, were telling me that they considered me Negro in many ways because I could not fit their definition of white, because we had become friends, and very close friends. But the Negro students who were working with us were not half as convinced of our sincerity and our honesty in the whole thing, were much more suspicious of our motives, of why we Northern whites had come down. I think one of the reasons for the suspicion of white Northerners by many of the Negro staff and fellow Negro volunteers was in the idea always that the white volunteers were going home in the fall, could always get out, that this was sort of a summer fling. And I have to admit, I myself am getting very suspicious of white liberals. I'm afraid I've been hard on myself and I'm hard on other people, because I feel that the Negro people in Mississippi and elsewhere have to commit their whole lives when they make a commitment. And it isn't fair for us to forget the whole thing or once in a while go to a civil rights rally. I'd had to face what it meant to be white in Negro society, and at least somewhat the Negro definition of what white means, or perhaps I should say just for the first time being aware of my whiteness. There's one problem that white girls face in working in Mississippi or any other southern state. This is the problem of the sex phobia of the white girl and the Negro male. It pervades the white communities in the South, and it comes in, of course, to the projects and the civil rights workers themselves. As a white female, you bring danger to your project. It is more dangerous to drive in Mississippi if you have a white girl in your car, if it's an integrated car, than if you don't. The one example where I personally know this to be true, that as a white female I added danger to my project workers' work, was one time when I'd been invited to go to the University of Mississippi in Oxford. And I was told to go with one of my fellow project workers, was a Negro, and his white companion in their car. They were doing voter registration work in Lafayette County, where Ole Miss is. I went to him and asked him to take me, and he flatly refused, saying that he was not going to put his life in danger by taking a white girl just to go speak at the Ole Miss campus. I finally persuaded this worker and his white co-worker to take me to Ole Miss. We almost were killed as a result of this, and I learned very well what it can mean to have a white girl in your car. I think that it's hard to pinpoint the whole philosophy of why we went, especially from the point of view of one little worker, but I think that basically it was to get the people going by sharing any ideas and skills we had, and hopefully they would take it from there. I'd like to go back to Mississippi. There's no doubt that working in the South is more rewarding with the Negro people. This is a problem. I feel we should be north. I feel we should be working specifically in our own communities. I also feel that's almost an impossible task. How do you talk to sophisticated northern white people who have money and like to relax when they're at home and are away from places like Mississippi and away from places like northern Philadelphia and simply want to be left alone? How do you convince these people that they must become involved? How do you tell them that they must do more than just entertain a Negro family who's educated in their own home? How do you say to them that they must contribute both money and time to other people? I believe, I do, that almost every white person in the country is prejudiced. You can't have grown up in our culture and not have some of these inside yourself. I find them in myself, and I feel I've just been lucky enough to have had Negro friends who've been understanding enough to help me through my discoveries and have accepted me with my prejudices. I think my whole life will be involved in working with people and helping people, and specifically working towards integration. I feel very much like I'm a marginal person. I am not happy nor comfortable in white society any longer, nor am I fully comfortable in Negro society. And I know that, at least for myself, it's been a very lonely, isolated year because of this.
Move on with the freedom fight. Move on, move on. We're fighting for equal rights. Move on, move on. Move on with the freedom fight. Move on, move on. We're fighting for equal rights.